Just giving a few moments for everybody to join in. Okay, let's just kick it off. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon wherever you guys are joining us from. My name is Tanya, and I am your host for today. Let's see where everyone is tuning in from. Drop your location in the comment or the chat sections below. We are streaming this live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and a couple of other places as well. So, welcome to our live stream. Why meditative arts benefit performance for stressed, busy people. And well, I think I can speak it on behalf of many of us corporate folks over here that yes, I am busy and yes, I am stressed too. So it brings me immense joy to introduce our panel today. We have Jane Sorrell with us. Jane is a life coach herself and the CEO and co-founder of CoachMaster.io. Jane is joined by our main speaker for today's event, Annie Weisbrod. Annie holds a PhD in meditation and resiliency and is an expert in supporting people to make healthy choices for optimal performances. Annie will take the stage pretty soon and provide us with insights into why meditative arts benefit performances. And she will also be taking your questions. So feel free to drop them in the comments, chat section, or the Q&A section that you can find in below. And before I hand it over to Annie, let's hear a quick welcome from Jane. So Jane, why don't you just say a quick hi to the audience?
Thank you, Tanya. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this live event. I just wanted to very briefly introduce CoachMaster for those of you who aren't familiar with us just yet. So we are a live webinar events hosting platform, and we have recently launched. As I say, we are hosting weekly talks, workshops, and masterclasses across all topics, whether it's self-transformation, self-growth, business development, health and well-being. And currently what we're doing, we're sharing some of our lives that we would normally host on our platform over these live streams, so more of you can join in today. And so whether it's boosting your confidence, whether you're facing workplace challenges, imposter syndrome, or you're looking for health and well-being tools and techniques, these are all topics that we're covering on our platform. And everything gets recorded into our on-demand library as well. So if you aren't able to join us live, you can go to our platform and always catch up on demand anytime, anywhere. So shortly I'll be handing over to Annie, of course, who is presenting for us today on a topic that I am extremely passionate about. It completely transformed my life many years ago. So I'm very, very passionate about this. And also, before I hand over to Annie, I just wanted to add that when I first met Annie, I was completely blown away, not only by Annie's passion for this subject as well, but also Annie's knowledge and expertise. And I am so excited to hear what Annie is going to share with us today. So that in mind, just to mention actually as well that this is part one of two webinars that Annie is hosting for us. So we'll share more about that at the end. We'll share a link at the end of how you can join the other parts. So I'm going to pass over now. Tanya, is there anything else you wanted to add before we pass over to Annie?
Yeah, that's all good. And again, just adding to what Jane mentioned, this is a part one of the three-part series. We will be sharing more details about the other two parts, which are going to happen soon at the end of this event. So just stay right there where you are. And there will be a couple of tips plus some nice, helpful tricks that Annie will be sharing today. So yeah, thank you so much, Jane, for the warm introduction. And without any further ado, let's hand the stage over to Annie. Annie, the floor is yours.
Good. Thank you very much. If I could have the slides, please.
Yes, sure thing.
Hello, everybody. I'm Annie Weisbrod. This is, as Tanya and Jane both referenced, the first part of three. There's so much information on this topic, so we're just going to take off little chunks every week here. So today we're going to talk about meditative arts. What is that and how that can help us with performance, and we're going to have two practices with that. And there we go to change my slides. So again, we're going to practice 2 mindsets that help improve your physiology, mindset, and resilience. The next part that we're going to cover next week on July 2nd is about lifestyle medicine that helps enable us to pivot on a dime and feel reasonably calm about being able to do that, that we set the body just through our daily habits into a condition that is less inflamed, less stressed by simply taking on 6 different practices. And then the third part that we're going to do on July 9 is related to changing behavior. We're going to talk about the stages of behavior change and how we can make these changes in our lives long lasting. Instead of just listening to a webinar for half an hour or 45 minutes, how do we actually integrate this into our daily practices? The reason that we're doing this is that our personal growth, our success relies on us being agile, for us to be able to pivot, and also to feel empowered that we really can do this and that we're accountable for our own lives and for others that we interact with. A little bit of a background about me. I am Dr. Annie Weisbrod. I support people to become more aware and make different choices for healthy living through online education programs like this one that we're doing today, and also some one-on-one healing work. I am a PhD scientist, and I worked for 25 years for a Fortune 100 company called P&G, or Procter & Gamble, where I was their global sustainability expert. And I also have 30 years of education and practice in the healing arts. I am a longtime Zen practitioner and Zen teacher, certified health coach, specialist in lifestyle medicine and behavior change, advanced yoga, and I'm also an energy healer. I've developed several 8-week courses. One of them is the Meditation Without Expectations program, of which we published in Current Psychology this past year. I also continue with meditation and resiliency series like this one that we're starting off today. Here we're going to begin on our topic today about meditative arts. These are contemplative practices that have been part of human life for thousands of years. And the reason for that is that it helps develop our resilience. The stress and busyness that we experience today is no different than what people had to deal with thousands of years ago. Just maybe different topics. We're more in caves like houses, but we are still having stressful lives. These kinds of practices help us with our body, our heart, our mind, and our soul. And it affects us. We start focusing on ourselves, and at some point we realize our own practices affect everyone around us. And that's why I am so keen and excited to be sharing this kind of information with everyone. So when stress happens, something changes in life, there's adversity, trauma with a small t or a big T, something happens in our lives and we react to it. We experience anger, sadness, grief, which is more complicated than just sadness. We might have pain. And when this happens, the body is triggered. We have that tense response. The sympathetic nervous system, the flight fight response kicks in. If we have high resiliency, which these meditative arts are going to help us develop, when we have high resiliency, even when we feel stressed, we have pain, we can still function well, both physically and psychologically, and we can recover from that. Resilience is the ability to adapt to difficult or life-changing experiences. It involves emotional aspects to how we feel, how we think, mental aspects, physical aspects, what we do with our bodies, and our behaviors, what actions we take. There are learned skills. This is not just innate. One person just doesn't happen to be more resilient than another. They've practiced. We've learned different skills that help enable us to adjust quickly to these internal and external demands when life gives us little surprises. This is an example here of this tree of contemplative practices. There's so many on here. I myself have done quite a few. Jane and I have talked about ones that she's done, but there's things on here like martial arts, walking meditation, dance, yoga, different ceremonies people may undertake, witnessing just anything that other people are going through with full, heart intention and deep listening, journaling, improv theater. I've also done some improv. We're going to focus today on this corner of the contemplative practices because I'm going to talk about meditation, how in silence we can find some stillness and calm ourselves down out of that triggered state. There are hundreds or thousands of types of meditations, and basically we can group them into 3 general areas. The first one is called concentrative or focused attention meditation, and we're going to do a practice on this where we're going to focus on our breathing as a first example. There's a second type of meditation groups, that's called open monitoring, where we are not focused on anything. We are completely open to everything coming in. And our second practice will be a little bit more like that when we focus on the senses. There's a third grouping of meditation types called compassion meditations, where we focus on loving kindness. A lot of the energy work that I do with people is focused on this heart space, not just the heart as an organ that pumps blood, but on the energies of the heart, which is responsible for emotion like joy and kindness. The 2 practices we're doing today are going to be on breathing and sensing. So we're going to start off just with some breathing practice today. I'd like you, just in the privacy of your own home or wherever you are, put one hand on your upper chest and one hand here on your upper belly, and just breathe. You don't have to do anything special, just breathe. And notice which hand is moving more or first. So for those of us that have this top hand moving more or first, which by percentages for at least North America and Europe is more than 60% of the adult population, are going to be chest breathing. And that is a sign of chronic stress, that our bodies are triggered all the time, even when they don't need to be, like now when you're just resting and watching me talk. For those that have the bottom hand moving more or first, that's considered a normal breathing pattern where we use all of the lungs. So if we are in flight fight mode, we are going to breathe from the upper body as if we had to run away from a lion. Okay, but we're not running away from a lion right now. We want to be breathing fully. So the next little practice we're going to do here is I'm going to ask you to focus on feeling your breath. So I'd like you to put both feet on the floor if they're not already. And just put your hands in your lap and sit with a tall, straight spine. This kind of a breathing practice is called a 3-part breath. We're going to focus on breathing and feel it in the body. I'm going to talk you through it. This is a very ancient contemplative practice. It's more than 4,000 years old. It comes from the Vedic tradition in India and Nepal, one of the pranayama practices. So I'm going to have you breathe in a little bit. Breathe in more, and now breathe in as much as you possibly can. Fill your lungs so much you can't get any more in, and then very slowly exhale. Keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling. We're going to do that several more times. So breathe in some, breathe in more, breathe in as much as you can and try to get your belly to move, the diaphragm to move. And then very slowly let that out. I'm going to talk it through one more time. Breathe in some, breathe in more, breathe in as much as you can. And then slowly let it out. I'd like you to keep going just for a minute. Trying to breathe in as deeply as you can. And then that slow, long exhale as if it could take forever. Let's do 2 more full breaths like this. Good. And release. So this is one of 2 techniques that I teach most often to people who say that they are stressed. That when something happens, when you're in a meeting and somebody says something that you're not expecting, when you're driving down the highway and a car cuts you off and you're surprised and you're worried about a car crash, but there's no problem, body just reacts. Anytime we have something that is unexpected and not wanted, the body grips. And one of the first things that happens is that we stop with normal breathing. The breathing becomes more shallow. And so that triggering of the sympathetic nervous system, the flight fight response, we can carry that for a few moments or weeks. And just by learning how to breathe changes the neurophysiology. It stimulates something called the vagus nerve, which is connected to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the balance, the other side, not the flight fight, but the rest, digest, and calming, sleeping state. So we don't actually fall asleep, but we can swing our bodies, hack the nervous system a bit to calm it down. These kinds of practices, breathing is just one of the options to do this. And it just takes 3 minutes. And that's important to remember, to just breathe like this for 3 minutes or more. And as you can see, you can do it anywhere, at any time. You can do it sitting and watching a lecture, a conversation like we are having. You could do it in a meeting. Nobody knows. Everyone's breathing all the time. So this is one that's very subtle and you can use for yourself when you recognize that you're feeling triggered, busy, stressed. You feel that heightening, that tensing of the body. You can immediately switch into deepening the breath. These really long inhales with really long exhales. And that's key. Depth and long exhales. That stimulates the vagus nerve, calms the body down in the moment when something is happening. This next one that we're going to do is called the 5 senses meditation. You frequently will hear about people saying, oh, be present. Well, how? How do you do that? And using our senses is one of the best ways that we can do that. And this is another practice that you can do anywhere at any time. We can have a still, silent practice of breathing. We can have a still, silent practice of looking at the 20 senses. Or we can be doing this throughout our day, washing dishes, talking to your child, talking to your parent, talking to a friend who's upset. At any time, the 5 senses are available. The breathing is available. So in this next practice, same thing, both feet flat on the ground, hands in your lap, tall, straight spine. And just breathe. Just be normal. And look at whatever is in front of you. And we're not going to label it or talk about it in the head. But just notice the colors, the shapes. Just see. And now listen. And listen to all the sounds. And now smell. Smell. Even if you think you can't smell anything, give it just a moment and you might be surprised. And taste whatever's in your mouth, whatever used to be in your mouth. And again, you might be surprised that you can taste. And now the sensation of touch on your skin. What do you feel on your skin? Your whole body covered in skin. Feel the clothes, your hair, the pressure on the seat, temperature of the air. You can feel the breathing on your upper lip through your nose. There's many more senses that humans have. We can feel temperature, like right now on your skin. You can feel the temperature inside your body. Feel around in your gut and you'll feel that it's warm. Interoception means that we can feel other things inside the body like hunger, thirst, nausea. We can feel if our breathing is shallow or if we feel tense. You might feel if you have some aches or pain somewhere. And just bring your mind's eye to that place. Even though we're sitting still, you can feel movement. You can feel your body breathing. You can feel that you're balancing right to left, forward or back. Maybe you just lean over just a centimeter, half an inch. You can feel the balance. Proprioception. You can feel where your right foot is or your left hand. You don't have to look at it. You just know where it is. And we can sense emotions. So feel into whatever emotions you have right now. Emotions are like a vibration. Anger has a different frequency, a different vibration than sadness, which has a different vibration than joy or curiosity. This is you. This is your body, your ability to sense, inside and outside of you. And that's what it means by being present. To be aware of what's going on inside you and around you. And with practice, we get better not only at sensing inside ourselves, but around us with others. Good. Take a deep breath. So this was, again, just a short little piece of what we're going to be doing next week and the week after. Today we learned about resilience. What does that word mean? And basically, good and bad stuff happens to us in life, and that there's skills that we can learn that help us manage well through life's challenges. And when we learn those skills, we become resilient. One of the ways that we develop resilience is by practicing meditative arts, these contemplative practices that have been around for millennia, that have helped people in all cultures, all times adapt to difficulties and to do well and enjoy the aspects of life that we can. There's more and more science that demonstrates why these work, and I'm happy to answer some questions about that if you have some today. There's many kinds of meditation practices. We just did 2 out of 100 today. Breathing and the 5 or 20 senses that you can do at any time if you choose to. And that's part of this game, is that we're choosing to learn. We're choosing to practice a couple of these, and that when we do that, it changes how the whole system works, how the physiology works, how our psychology, our minds work, and the emotions that we feel, and thus how much we can enjoy what life has to offer. Remember, next week, July 2, we're going to be talking about lifestyle medicine and 6 different pillars of lifestyle medicine. This is some contact information from me. If you would like to sign up for notifications, just type in annieweisbrod.com. You can register for other classes there. And really, I encourage you to join us next week for that next one or the week after on behavior change. I am on social media, but I don't post very often. And I wish you well. I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions or comments. And what did you discover about your abilities when we did those little exercises? So type in the chat if you want. Back to you, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Annie. I personally gained a lot of insight today. Trust me on that. And let's just dive into some questions from the audience, shall we? So I can see we received a question as a LinkedIn message. It's an anonymous one. So the question is that when people experience stress, they often enter a state of denial and they avoid help and failing to recognize their own stress. So could you maybe just share a pro tip on how individuals can identify when it's time to acknowledge their stress and set aside time for meditation despite their busy schedules?
Yeah, good. That's a great question for whoever asked that one. So yes, we sometimes become so adapted, we think that stress is normal, and it's not. There's maybe moments when it is, and so sometimes we don't realize when we are reaching a point where it's too much. And so one of the things that we could do is notice your breath, this little exercise we did. And so that's one thing that you can do. Am I breathing more from my chest? So that's a very quick diagnostic. Another one is that some people will feel tingling in the body. This is my cat, Claire, excuse me. But you'll feel tingling in the body. You'll feel tense. People will have pain in the neck or in the shoulders or in the low back. It's not only from sitting in a chair at a computer, for example, for too long. It can also be because you're tensing, right? So those are just little physiological indicators that you can help you understand what to do. The next thing is we're going to cover in part 3, July 9, I believe that is. And so there's stages of behavior change. The first stage is that we're ignorant. We have no idea that anything's going on. Whatever's happening, we think is normal, and it's not. You're just ignorant to how it affects you. So you can use these little diagnostics to help bring you into that next stage, which is contemplation. Maybe I'm going to think about it. That first stage where we're ignorant, we have no idea about it, we're resistant to change. But if we can get ourselves into feeling maybe, I'm a bit ambivalent, but I'm willing to consider it. And you can start to look at the pros and cons. And as you say, how do you encourage yourself to just breathe and remember to do that? Some people set a timer. The iWatches will sometimes tell you to stand up or tell you to take a breath. Take it seriously. Do that. But in that second stage, you start to think about, well, maybe I could try these things. The third stage is you start to explore and you just try it. What happens if I'm driving down the street or I'm sitting on the bus, however it is that I get to work or to whatever I do after my workday, and I just will try it. Just going to try breathing, try 5 senses. and just see how that works. And you start to explore that, and then you'll start to realize how it feels in your body. And then once you realize it feels good, you'll do it more. And that's a really important aspect of the biochemistry of the body, is that when we do these practices, we are rewarded. We feel better. We're less annoying to ourselves, and we realize we enjoy others around us and things happening. We're more calm. Something may happen in front of us, and we're like, okay, I can deal with that. And so you start to notice those changes, and it's rewarding to see that. And that's how we encourage ourselves to make those changes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So,
Mhm.
on those notes, just one thing that just popped up into my own mind, because I know that I can feel stressed at a lot of time. I sometimes consider that 24 hours is very less, to be honest, because I think I'm stressed all the time. So, considering those aspects, just the one thing that came into my mind was that uh, in the corporate life, people tend to be stressed about a lot of events that have not yet happened.
Right.
They tend to just focus on things that might happen in the future, and then they just start stressing about all those aspects. So, what are your tips for that, just for the
Yeah.
audience?
So what that's called rumination, worry, right? And there's a system of the brain. So here you get some science. There's a system of the brain called the reticular activation system. And what it does in the brain is it helps us detect patterns. And the whole idea is to keep us safe, to keep us alive. Back, thousands of years ago when we were walking around and possibly being attacked, physically and losing our lives. Doesn't really happen much today. We have to be careful, but you're right. We ruminate about things in the workplace. I'm not going to meet this deadline. This person that I'm working with is, kind of mean to me in some ways, right? Something's happening that I don't like. And we just tell the stories and tell the stories and tell the stories. So one thing we can do with that is realize you're telling a story. And yeah, there she is. You're telling a story. Just breathe instead. Let the story pause. Calm yourself down. So step one is calm down. When you realize that you're telling a story and that it's heightening your stress, step one is calm down. Step two is question, is that real? I very frequently give my students an article on cognitive distortions. All of us do these things. The mind is constantly trying to find patterns, and that's what this reticular activation system does. It's trying to find a pattern between what is happening right now and what happened, some time period ago, or somebody told me about it before. And I'm going to link these two together and say, well, because this happened over here that was yucky, it's going to be yucky again. We don't know that, but the reticular activation system is designed to help us get ready in case we need to. And that's helpful until it's too much and it's turned on too long, right? There's no problem with planning. There's no problem with reflecting and thinking things through. This is helpful. But when it's on too long and makes up these stories that cause us pain, that's when it becomes a problem. So another thing you might be interested in doing, and anyone else, is contact me. I'd be happy to send you the link for this article on cognitive distortions that teaches people about what happens in the mind. What are these thinking patterns that we all have where we can catch ourselves and say, oh, I am making a mountain out of a molehill here. It's called magnification. Or I'm overgeneralizing where something is black or white. If it's not perfect, it's a problem. Well, there's lots of space in between, but the mind is, again, trying to protect us. And so it will overgeneralize. And those are just examples. Sometimes we also think we can predict the future. And you know what? We can't. But we try to, but it's another distortion.
You know what, Annie, I love that you've just shared that about the cognitive distortions, because that's what was in my mind, that, when people start telling these stories based on the past, based on experiences of the past, but we don't always realize, do we, that we are in our own story, because to us it just feels very real. It feels like the truth. So I was going to ask you, how does someone identify if they are telling a story when to them it just feels like a fact?
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's, again, we believe what the mind says. Yeah. And the problem is the mind isn't 100% accurate. It's helpful. We want this thing to work well, but it's not 100% accurate. And when we start to learn about these patterns that we have in distorting things, again, they're all about keeping us safe, all about keeping us prepared, all good reasons for it, but they can go overboard. And so we got to catch ourselves. Have I gone overboard here? And you can feel it in your body. So as people learn more about something called somatic experiencing, where you feel in the body, ooh, I'm feeling really tense. What's going on there? Is there a story I'm telling myself? Sometimes we don't even know that we're telling ourselves a story, right? Not only do we believe it, we don't even know there's a story there. And that's one of the things that meditation helps us with. And not quite the two that we did today, but really sitting for a longer period of time and feeling into it, reflecting, asking these questions. What's real? What's real? And once you're familiar with cognitive distortions, you can just look at the list and go, am I doing this? Am I doing this? Am I doing this? And you might go, ooh, yeah, I am. Or you might go, this is pretty accurate. And maybe there's some planning that I can put into action here that will help reduce that. And some of it is, talking to people. And that's a whole other group of skills that I know you guys have in your Coach Master system of, related to communicating in a nonviolent, compassionate way, in an effective way, in a strategic way. And we start to pull in all these other skills that we learn as competent, mature, emotionally intelligent adults.
Yeah, I think it's great to know there's different ways we can understand, right? And it's all about building that self-awareness, isn't it? Like you say, whether you start to recognize your own story and the patterns that you're kind of keep playing out, or you start to notice it in the body. Like you say, there's different ways we can start to understand ourselves better, and then look to these practices to really support us in changing, I guess, and feeling better about life and ourselves and increasing our well-being.
Yeah.
Tanya, did we have any other questions for Annie?
Well, let me just check quickly. I know that we did.
For a moment,
getting a couple of those.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to share to people who've joined us to not forget that Annie will be with us again next Tuesday on the platform on coachmaster.io. So it's completely free to join part 2 as well. You can sign up. We're going to share the link, I think, shortly, aren't we? It's at the same time next week. So next Tuesday, same 9 EST. I can't wait. Annie, it's been such a pleasure. I feel such a treat for you to join us today. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing everything. I really enjoyed it. And that 5 senses technique as well, I just think that is so great for anyone that's feeling overwhelmed or stressed in the moment, to just connect to the present moment, which we, as you say, we all talk about it so much, don't we? Be present, but how? And I think that really helped give a really beautiful, quite simple way of saying, get out of your mind and just connect to the senses. I love that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You are very welcome. I love being here. Thank you.
On that note, Annie, I would suggest you to just share your screen, present it once again, and just showcase your contact details for the audience once again. The slide that had your contact information, it will be helpful for the audience to check that again.
Okay. There we go. Did that work? There we go. Did that work? Can you guys see that?
I don't think.
Not just yet.
That.
Hmm.
Yep. Maybe if you can simply just drop that in the chat box for everybody.
Sure, I will do that. Let me do that. Okay. Oops, there we go. There, okay, just dropped it in the chat.
Thank you, Annie.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that, and I'll just make sure everybody gets this.
Good, thanks. And thank you everyone for calling in. I wish you well. Keep breathing, keep sensing, Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. I wish you well.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who joined us today. Tanya, you'll be sharing the link shortly, won't you, for people to register for the next part?
Yes, I am just in the midst of doing that. Just give me a second, and I'll just share all those details with everyone right over here.
Got it? Bye.
Thank you so much.